Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to The What Life and Merry Christmas. This is a Christmas Day, 6 p.m. UK time ride, and we have the very special pleasure of, firstly, Mr. Erik Lee in the house. Don't get dropped cycling. He did actually message me. I'll pop the message up on the screen just to let me know that he's done a race earlier today as well. So thanks for joining us for the second race of your day, Erik, as we go head-to-head in the RGV, part of the Best of Zwift, or the Z Monthly or Zracing Monthly series. And we're finishing this one off. A special shout out as well to Darren, who is DCZwifter. I'll put his link in the description, who also recorded the race and has a cheeky little Zwift channel. And we actually raced last night, but I have been doing a few races where I haven't, lo and behold, haven't been recording them. I've just actually been doing it for the pleasure of Zwifting, riding, fitness, racing, and just because I enjoy it. So I don't record every single race that I do. So every now and again I do dive into the odd race and don't bother recording it because it's actually a bit less stressful that way. Anyway, let me throw in some stats for the race. I don't know what the RGV stands for, but we're in France. We are firing through it's the last of the Zracing Monthly series for December. Obviously, Christmas Day falls on a Monday, so it's still categorized as prime time, although the numbers are understandably not as big as they usually are. But we still have a reasonable size field and some good hitters, so it was a lot of fun, so I really did enjoy it. So like I said, we're in France. We're riding the RGV route. It's 24.9k, as good as 25 kilometers. Now working the metric system, you guys are welcome. That's my Christmas present to you. And it's 133 meters of elevation over the whole course of the ride. So I didn't really know what to expect, although I knew that it being 25k and 133 meters, that it was going to be a pretty flat route. It was basically a series of, reasonably kind of minor attacks. I'll be completely honest with you. I actually dived on tonight because I just wanted to get some mileage in on Christmas Day and get some exercise done. I wasn't really anticipating or wanting to throw down on a hard and fast Zwift race. So this was a bit unexpected. And then once I saw Erik in the race, I knew that it was basically a case of do what you have to do to beat don't get drop cycling. Don't get drop cycling. So that was my plan. That was my goal. That was going to be my present to myself on Christmas Day. But it wasn't until after the race that he did inform me that he had done another race this morning. I'll flash that up on the screen just so you guys know. Erik raced twice today, guys. It's very important you understand that. Anyway, the guy has been racing. I have been following along. He has been racing every single day for, I don't know how long it's been now, but Erik, are you okay? Blink if you are, if you need some help, my friend. Just want to check that everything is okay in the Lee household. You are welcome to come and spend some boy time just chilling out in the UK anytime you want a bit of rest. Anyway, I am joking. I hope you're well, Erik. Like I said, I wasn't actually kind of anticipating kind of going too hard, so I did want to try and make the most of a fun evening racing, and considering the number of people that were in the race, it seemed like it was pretty perfect numbers. I'll also point out that I did notice during the race that myself and Erik ride the same bike. We're both on the Specialized, I can't remember which one it is, but I did notice that. We both ditched our Tron bikes and have moved back to one of the Specialized bikes. I don't know why he's done it. I just thought I'd go for a change, but that was a little coincidence, a coincidink that I did notice when we were riding today. Bit upset that not more people have the Christmas jumper on today, but lo and behold. Right, guys, I don't really ask for much. I never really kind of ask people to do anything for me, but I am going to say right now, I have just put out a video on my latest bike build, which is the Windspace T1550. I'm going to do a few more videos on it throughout the course of the next week or so. Make the most of the time between Christmas and New Year. But if you could please just go and drop a comment on that video or like it, because I am quite proud of it. I love that bike. I love the way it looks, and I quite enjoyed making the video. I don't really do these videos, to garner popularity or anything like that. I just quite like making them. But that is one video that I am quite proud of. I really like it. And I would like it to do reasonably well. So if possible, and you do have a bit of spare time, perhaps you're on Boxing Day, just check out the channel, and it's the Winspace Dream Bedroom Build. Not enough people build bikes in their bedroom. I will say that. But yeah, so if you wouldn't mind helping a guy out, that would be absolutely awesome. So the long and short of this race, to get down to the nitty gritty, is basically it's too flat over the first half. So as a group, you kind of always stay together. I will also kind of, the thing that I have found is that my fitness has improved. My ability has improved. My ability to ride out the surges has really improved. And that's the one thing I've noticed. These little changes in pace, which I will add, catch Erik out slightly later in the race. And don't think I didn't see this, Erik. So check it out. There is a point later in the race that I will highlight where we catch Erik out on a change of pace. And it is quite pivotal, or certainly a pivotal point between mine and Erik's little tete-a-tete. So what I have found is my fitness has improved, so I have managed to kind of ride these little surges out like way more manageable. My stats for this race, to give you an idea, is I hold 282 watts at a 295 normalized, which is 3.7 watts per kg for the 34 odd minutes that it takes us to finish the race. And I actually found this race, I will say this kind of conservatively. After racing yesterday and doing an FTP test yesterday, I didn't feel great coming into this in terms of performance, but I didn't find this a kind of absolutely brutally hard race. So I definitely feel like, from an improvement point of view, guys, I feel like I'm worlds apart from the guy that I was kind of over the summer, which is incredibly comforting, and it does go to show that all the hard work has paid off. I actually did, like I said, just mentioned, I did an FTP test. I did an FTP ramp test yesterday. It was Christmas Eve. I didn't want to do a 20-minute test because they're hard and they're horrible, and I didn't fancy doing that on Christmas Eve. So I did an FTP ramp test. It was an interesting result, and I'll put the video out in the next few days, and I'll tag that one, or I'll double that up with my Out to Zwift effort that I did maybe a week ago now, where I went up Out to Zwift in 49 minutes 48 seconds. So these are great improvements. But interestingly, my FTP test, I wasn't feeling 100%. I've struggled the last few days, and it definitely reflects that, because it might be a surprise. I mean, I'll ruin it. It wasn't like an improvement at all. It was exactly the same as it was like the last time I did it, which was maybe 2 months ago. But yet I'm handling these races so significantly more comfortably than when I was riding back in October, November. These are, I feel way more comfortable in these groups, especially, even these big 130 person Cat B races, the primetime ones. I'm now I creeped into like top 30. I'm having most, well, not most, but some of these other races, I have felt that I'm shifting in terms of ability. Yet that ramp test was a bit of an indicator. I think I maybe just struggled. I picked the wrong time to do it, but it didn't quite go to plan. I was hoping to add a few watts on at least, but I will say the only thing I can really say about it is that my feedback from a perceived effort was that it felt my FTP test, I felt more comfortable doing it. Just my legs were just blown out and I just couldn't turn the cranks, which obviously you got to do to cycle. So I did find that really interesting. But like I said, I did put down a 49.48 up Out to Zwift the other day, and I'm going to double that video up, Out to Zwift and an FTP test. And we're going to go as a bit of a rundown in terms of just how my fitness is and where it's got to towards the end of the year, which I think is quite cool. In this race, however, just diving back in for a second, it was quite comforting to see that absolutely no one had any clue whatsoever, when to use power-ups or how to use power-ups. I don't know this route at all. So I was just kind of responding to other riders, like trying to hold my position. A lot of the time I was checking where Erik was to see where he was riding. And for instance, I didn't realize that this was the aqueduct climb, even though you can quite clearly see we're going up an aqueduct. I didn't know how many power-ups we were going to get throughout the whole course of the race. So I was like riding out the hard bits of the aqueduct whilst everyone else is using their power-ups without using my power-up, just kind of riding out the surge, just, kind of getting out the saddle and putting some effort in, not realizing that as soon as you come around the corner, oh look, there's another banner and you're going to pick up another power-up, so I might as well just dump mine now. So, I was completely inefficient with every single one of my power-ups, except for my last one when I burn off Erik Lee at the finish line. But hey! But as mentioned, he had a race earlier today. You're racing twice on Christmas Day, Erik. You were a busy man. Anyway, I didn't know the route. I didn't know the course. I think we might have dropped a few riders off the back. There was a little selection. It was very key. My whole goal for this race, as usual, was to ride in the front group. When we raced last night, I had a lot of fun racing last night. I think Darren, DCZwifter, has a video from our race last night that's up on his channel. I didn't actually record it. I was just out there racing. It was a very different race for me. That race last night, I was happy to try and take the front as much as possible. We did a crit race, we did a volcano circuit, 4 or 5 loops. I was happy to try and sit on the front and push the pace. I wanted a good training session out of it. I wanted to work hard during the race. And lo and behold, when it came to the sprint finish, I got absolutely dusted off and I had a terrible kind of finish towards the end of the race. But I was very keen to push the intensity of the race while it was happening. Whereas this race was very different. I just wanted to make sure that I had some beans left in my pocket for when it came down to the finish and I could out sprint anyone that was wearing a Wahoo Lacole jersey, whoever that might be. And interestingly, Erik did message me after the race saying that he was because my sprint in this one, guys, is actually it's not terrible. It's reasonable. And I'd love to know what Erik has to say about it, because I go early. I go very early. I think I'm the first to go on the sprint, which I think is quite interesting because then I have to hold it. And I was quite willing to, let's say, kind of shift down through the gears after realizing I'd gone quite early on my sprint, until I saw Erik's head pop into my screen. And then that was the moment I was like, oh, okay, it's do or die. That was when I saw a little orange headband kind of poke its way into the top of the bottom of the screen. But that we will get to that, and that was basically the impetus behind me surging on for my sprint, my early sprint, to make it to the line. But we'll get into that in a minute. So this course is, if you are going to race this one, I actually don't think any of the power-ups make a difference for the first however many parts of the race. If you can sit on wheels, then you're pretty good. I know that I think there was a bit of a kerfuffle amongst a few of the riders, as there always is. I do love a good bit of a Zwift argy-bargy about people sitting on wheels and then just diving into the sprint at the finish. But I guess that is effectively racing. And like I said last night, my goal was when I raced last night, was to change the pace of the race and kind of put the little kicks in. But obviously it took that energy out of me for when it came to the finish, and I had a horrible sprint finish last night. But it was slightly different this evening because, for me, very happy to sit in the group, didn't want to be driving the bus, just wanted to hold on. And it was a Christmas Day ride. It was also because of that, because of the kind of holding into the group and just kind of happily working, I do manage to get one of my highest heart rates I have seen in about 4 months. So I'm really happy with that. That's like an incredibly kind of beneficial thing behind taking a few days off. I had 3 or 4 days where I didn't really do too much. And this is the point I was talking about earlier that was really interesting, because we basically almost lose the group here. And I realised that Erik is sat on my wheel with his buddy, so I kick into the group quite hard. And because I kick quite hard, I think Erik gets left behind and has to use his power up to then move back up into the group. Otherwise, he might end up I don't know. Maybe something was going on in the garage and one of the kids needed something, which isn't unbeknown. That's not out the ordinary for a Mr. Erik Lee race. But I'm pretty sure that he ends up having to use his power up to then move back into the group, which effectively means he does not have a power up now for the finish line. And I knew this because I see him come into the group in a second and he's using his power up. So there we go. There he is, Wahoo Lacole kit at the back with his draft power up going, because I think he had to use that to then move back onto the group. And he's sat next to Darren at the back there, who's wearing the blue stripy jersey. So it'd be interesting to see. I might have to check Darren's little race video just to see what happened, if he's got a part of it, or certainly Erik will kind of be able to show us what exactly happens there. There were a few kicks throughout the race, and it was just a case of just holding the wheel. I actually thought, like I said, I don't really know this map or this route or this world very well. I actually really enjoyed the end part of this race. Now, some stats on the actual race as a whole. Me personally, did the RGV route holding 283 watt average, which felt, like I said, actually felt reasonably comfortable today. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it in a kind of loose sense of the term. The thing that really killed me off was certainly the sprint at the finish. That was the thing that really hurt. And we're going to start talking about that in a second, because as you can see, we're not too far out from the finish line. But this was the part of the route that I actually really enjoyed. I think the fact that the pace changed, a few guys were using their power-ups. I don't know whether they were doing that because they couldn't stay with the group, or they just wanted to use it on the climbs, and that's where a feather is most effective. But personally, I probably would have tried to hold it for the finish line. Even a feather must make a bit of a difference putting in a sprint. I don't know, you tell me, is that the case? Because it's basically this point onwards where I am trying to position myself relative to Erik, just to see where he is. That's it, Specialized the Venge, that's what we're both riding, the S-Works. Both got the same bike, slightly different wheels, so pretty evenly matched, other than the fact that, just a quick reminder guys, that Erik did a race this morning. But yeah, so we're pretty evenly matched in terms of the bikes that we're obviously on, slightly different wheel set. But I was just trying to make sure that coming into this last section that I was well positioned for the sprint. And I didn't really know what I was doing, as is usually the case. I just knew that I was probably going to go early and just not be afraid. I didn't want to be left behind. I didn't want to leave it too late. It's not my best sprint effort because I went quite early. I didn't want to kind of really try and just hammer the watts. I wasn't actually keeping too much of an eye on the watts at the time that I did it, but I do know that I managed to hold it reasonably well. So rather than just kind of really going top end watts, it was more just measuring the effort and driving out. And again, it's one of those things where it's practice makes perfect, right? And I know that a lot of people, a sprint can really, especially a race like this where it's dead flat. And I don't know whether anyone's noticed, but next month's January thing, literally the Zracing monthlies are called flat something. So they're all flat races. So it's going to be all the big boys in these groups. So we're definitely going to have to do something to try and break the race up at the points where we can, so that it's not just a bunch of big powerhouse sprinters left for the finish. Otherwise, we're all going to get dusted. So we're going to have to do something about that, and we'll have to think of a way to try and change the dynamic of a race maybe, or whatever we can do. But for this one in particular, my plan was to position well. I still have my power up. I know that Erik doesn't have his power up, so I have that going for me. I don't know why I chose the point to go at when I decided to go. I don't know. I just thought, caution to the wind, I guess, is probably the way I describe it. Just kind of throw it out there. I will definitely have to watch Erik's stream to see kind of where he is positioned relative to me when I decide to go. And it's honestly, it's not far off now from when I just okay, let's kick. And my positioning was obviously very important, but I didn't want to be too far ahead. Obviously, make the most of the draft. Some guy goes nice and early, so that I didn't really see as necessarily an attack. And then here we go. I'm just like, right, let's go. Drop the power up, drop the watts, push out. A few guys obviously come with, and then my heart rate, I'm super impressed with it. 174, 175, 176. So my watts come up, and I'm like, okay, right, I'm a bit smoked here. There's Eric's head, and I'm like, right, gun it. Don't let him beat me. And then just enough to make the line, and that honestly makes me so happy, guys. Anyway, I loved it tonight, guys. Please go and check out the Winspace T1550 video. Thanks so much for joining in, guys. It's been a fantastic year, and Mr. Erik Lee, it was a lot of fun racing with you. I will see you guys on the next one. Please check out the Winspace video and drop a comment if you can. Thanks, guys.